So I went ahead and did a project last year. It was shooting black and white slides. So the reason why I did this project was I found out that black and white slides were a thing, and I happened to get hold of a roll of Fomapan R, which is a 100 ISO slide film, except it's not normal slide film, it is black and white film. You can shoot it as a black and white negative, however with special chemistry, and there are a few companies out there that go ahead and do that special chemistry. One of them is Bellini, the other one is Adox. They have what you call a SCALA kit. Now, SCALA kits are for making black and white slides.
To create a black and white positive, the first step is to develop your negative, almost normally to produce a black and white negative image. The negative image is then bleached away, without fixing the negative. This is to remove the silver halide, leaving only the unexposed silver halide remaining. Then the negative is re-exposed to the light to activate the remaining unexposed silver halide and redeveloped to reveal the positive image that is left behind. Parts that saw the most light in the camera will be the blackest in the negative stage, leaving the least black remaining for the positive stage. Parts that saw the least light in the camera will be the whitest in the negative stage, and consequently blackest in the positive stage. Technically, you can make reversals from nearly all black and white films, both current and expired. The issue is that most of the modern films come on a non-transparent base, which will ruin the contrast. The best films for reversal come on a clear plastic base, so that you can view them in perfect monochrome. Often on a datasheet, it will show you how effective it is for black and white slides.
Now, I didn't go ahead and develop these myself, as I would have just shown you in a little diagram how it works. The lab went ahead and did all that for me. The biggest thing was learning what films would actually go ahead and work for that process. So what I would highly recommend is FP4. I would also recommend using ROLLEI infrared as well. From my experience, you might want to go ahead and not meter the ROLLEI infrared and just stick to the 1 second f8 rule, just because of the fact that metering an infrared film, in my experience, has not come out very well. So I prefer to just stick to the f8 rule. The other thing that I found out whilst doing the research was originally I had some 3200 ISO film, some Delta 3200 that I was going to use for this project. However, I discovered that higher ISO films, in particular anything even mid-range of 400 ISO, will come out apparently really foggy. So I didn't risk it. I didn't want to get bad photos from this project as much as possible. So I went ahead and just developed those as normal, as you can see here. So you are limited on your ISO range when it comes to doing black and white slides. You're going to mainly want to stick around the 100 ISO films, or ROLLEI infrared, or I think it's FPX 50, but you have to shoot that at 25 ISO. It does mean that if you want to shoot more nighttime stuff, you're going to need a tripod or use a flash. And if you've got the ability, use a camera that has a leaf shutter. Usually these are medium format. Get a PC sync cable so that you can go ahead and connect your leaf shutter to the flash, and then you'll be able to fire at any speed you want. You get a greater range of options available to you with what your lens is capable of shooting and what your camera is capable of shooting. Now, I did get some strangeness with my black and white slides, in particular the Fomapan, Foma R. I don't know what happened, but as you can see by these photos, there looks like to be fungi on the film. That was bitterly disappointing. It did ruin a lot of photos, and as much as I tried to Photoshop it out of some photos, it was not really that fixable. Some photos were basically, they weren't good enough in the first place, so it's not the biggest issue in the world, but it's definitely something that was a bit frustrating. I bought those in Shanghai from the Shanghai Camera Exchange. I don't know how they were kept. Everything else I bought from the Shanghai Camera Exchange was fine, and a lot of expired film, so I don't understand, because that film was reasonably quite fresh and new. I can't remember exactly how old it was on the box, but it's a relatively newly made film, so it shouldn't have sat around long enough that should have been an issue. I've never ever come across before, and I've shot a lot of expired film, I've never come across before where the expired film ends up having mold in it. It can happen, but it is actually extremely rare, and usually only when film is stored in really bad humid conditions. But like I said, the rest of the film was fine. So I'm not too sure, but it does make me wary. It is also a 100 ISO film. You don't need to shoot this film to do black and white SCALA, and I would possibly recommend not shooting that film at all. It wasn't even that great. The FP125 shots were more than good enough, and that's basically what, a quarter or a third of a stop difference. So if I was going to recommend a roundabout 100 ISO film to shoot, get FP4, because also FP4 you can put in medium format. The FOMA R does not come in medium format, only comes in 35mm. So take that into account. This is one of my favorite rolls. This was taken on my FUJICA 690. These are incredibly sharp, and I really mean sharp. The amount of shadow detail, the amount of highlight retention, black and white slides are something different to normal slide photography. Normal slide photography can go out of whack quite quickly. You can easily lose your highlights, you can easily lose your shadows. You have to meter correctly, and the lighting has to be correct for you. However, I have found across the different film stocks that you can go ahead and edit black and white slides, even if they look very contrasty and possibly underexposed. You can scan them and you get way more detail back. So even if they don't look that great for projecting, you may actually find you still have a usable image, and that is something that's quite cool and different between SCALA black and white slides and normal slide photography. Now, these two rolls were taken on AGFA APX or AGFA SCALA. Technically, a lot of SCALA films that used to exist are actually just other film stocks. SCALA film stocks were just simply film stocks that a brand would market as being scalable, and really they're just another film stock that they already had, and it just happens to work really well for the black and white slide process. So yeah, just to keep that in mind, some of the film stocks that exist these days that are black and white are actually film stocks that used to be used for this process, so you can still use them for this process. So these were taken on my C220 with this one, FUJICA 645 with this one. A couple of these were underexposed, but like I said earlier, I was able to recover them in post, and that's really cool to be able to do. There is a bit of curling with some of this older film stock, but for the most part, handles pretty well. These photos here, I think they were metered exceptionally well. The FUJICA 645 is a fantastic camera, as you can see by these shots. And these are just as sharp and clear when you are just looking at them first thing when you actually go ahead and scan them. Like, they're ridiculously sharp and clear. And as you can see here, these are some shots that I took on my C220. Again, this is FB4. The amount of detail that's actually kept here is just ridiculous. If I could, I would shoot only black and white slides versus normal black and white if it wasn't such a time-consuming process. And it does require my lab going ahead and doing it for me, and me having to go ahead and get special chemistry. So yeah, to keep that in mind. When I wanted to go get these developed, I needed to have the right chemistry, so I had gone ahead and ordered the Bellini kit. In fact, I'd ordered 2 because they happened to have it on half price, so instead of paying for 1, may as well pay for 2, and I can redo this process next year, or should I say this year, and I will possibly try do the chemistry myself once I've spent some time learning to develop, which is something that I haven't done just yet. Developing is something that I'm going to be doing this year, and once I've got the developing process down, I'm going to go ahead and make myself some black and white SCALA slides myself, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I will also be going ahead and buying the ad hoc SCALA kit as well, so that I can go ahead and not do a direct comparison because I won't be taking the photos at the same time, but just a comparison on using that particular setup. So look out for that. So if I was to take anything away from this project, is you just have to be patient. This took about 8 months to go ahead and do, from the beginning of the project when I got my first roll to completing my last roll. It was a bit frustrating because it held up other projects, so if you're into mixing projects, do think about your timeframes. This was a very difficult project to go ahead and do because there was a lot of research involved, but also it was just going ahead and organizing times to go ahead and shoot a lot of rolls. If you are going to go ahead and shoot black and white slides and get your lab to do it, it's most cost effective to go and get them all done at once. So you need to go ahead and make sure that you've got all your rolls ready. And if you're using something like ILFORD Pan 50, that film stock apparently needs to be developed quite quickly after it's been shot, according to my lab. So in that situation, you want to make sure that that's your last film that you have shot, and take it to the lab as soon as possible. You don't want it sitting around for apparently months at a time. Just the advice that I've been told. So do keep that in mind when you are possibly doing this project. If anything, I would recommend just shooting FP4. Seriously, this was the best of the film stocks in my opinion. It easily kept highlights and shadow detail exactly where they needed to be, and pretty much there was not one bad exposed photo with that film stock. So that's what I would recommend if you're going to shoot black and white SCALA.